So with the announcement of the Proving Grounds beta, I think a lot of people have been wondering, how does this really affect the game? So what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to play through a little bit of an Empire campaign. Now you're not going to watch every single turn. I'm just going to show you guys the beginning of this portion. We're going to go through the whole difficulty area box that has now been changed. And then we're going to jump forward to around a turn 30, 40, 50, give or take. And I'll just kind of explain what I've kind of discovered with the Proving Grounds beta, how it's really morphed and or changed the game, and what drastic changes have either helped or hindered my playthrough of this Total War Warhammer 2 beta patch. Now, if you are not familiar with the Proving Grounds beta, I'm going to put it in the description. There'll be a quick link there. You can go ahead and jump and take a look at those patch notes. But essentially, it's kind of geared towards fine-tuning how the AI reacts in the game, how the difficulty system works in the game, and a number of other really big things that a lot of people have either asked for, or it's been a community consensus, are kind of really lacking or just an overall detractor of the game. A big thing, I think, is the supply lines. The supply lines are being removed from the game, so every time you create a lord, a new army as it were, you're not going to have this overall encumbrance on your upkeep because of your supply lines. So real quick, let's go through these campaign difficulties. We've got starter, which is just new to Total War. And essentially, from top to bottom, you have a fast to slower campaign. So fast-paced Total War with cheaper recruitments and construction. Standard, slower-paced Total War with expensive recruitment and construction. Now, keep in mind, this has increased the recruitment cost and construction cost of top tier buildings and reduced it of lower tier buildings. They kind of created a disparity between those two. So we'll see how this really plays out as I kind of jump through some turns of this campaign. Now we also have Veteran, which is a slower paced Total War with expensive recruitment and construction and increased AI buffs. And then lastly, we have Legendary, slower paced Total War with expensive recruitment and construction, increased AI buffs. Manual saves not allowed in campaign. Orders cannot be issued when a battle is paused. So those last two lines are really the only two big things. From what I at least I remember, Veteran and Legendary have the same amount of debuffs as far as how they affect the AI and your cost from a campaign standpoint. But you can take a look at what those actual numbers are in the link in the description. That's the entire patch notes for the Proving Grounds. Again, this is a beta. Not everything that you see in the Proving Grounds is going to make it into the game. It's just to kind of tweak and help fine-tune things. Creative Assembly was saying that this is really a way to move the sliders in a drastic direction and then fine-tune from there. You know, we're going to get all these sweeping huge changes in the beta to then get community feedback to then get kind of a fine-tune experience to help with a further rebalancing of the game as the continued DLCs come out for Total War Warhammer 2. Let's jump into this campaign. We're going to jump back here at around like turn like 40 or 50, and we'll see how things have gone. I've shut off all of my mods, so we don't have any kind of differing opinions of this. I just want to get a baseline for how Proving Grounds works. Now for this campaign, we're going to be playing the Mighty Emperor Karl Franz. I think it just makes the most sense. And what we're going to do here is this is just turn 1. I'm going to quickly jump through the building browser because I want to see how different things are. Usually when you get towards the end of the campaign, or at least by the point that I intend on showing you, we can't see all the building costs associated with building things. So, because they're going to be already built. So let's jump into the building browser real quick. And what I'm gonna do is, before we jump into the turn 40-50 section, I'm gonna remove the patch and show you guys what the building browser looks like as a juxtaposition between the Proving Grounds beta and the current live 1.83 patch. So let's take a look right now. And we can already kind of see right here. So jumping into like the second tier, just by looking at the harbor, only 1,500. If memory serves me correctly, that's typically around like the 3,000 bracket. And this makes a jump up to the 6,000 bracket. So ports have definitely kind of had their costs reduced. But with the two things that are really going to be the biggest increase in prices are going to be your landmarks, which are all going to be pretty much standard fare, right? 16K for the Imperial Palace. 15K for Outdoor Colleges of Magic, 10K for the Conclave of Battle Wizards, and 6K for the Castle Reichsguard. The biggest hike in pricing, from what I can at least tell, and from what I've read from the patch notes, is this thing, our military support branch. So the Blacksmith is now 4K, with the armory being 8K. I believe it was 3 and 6 before, and we'll see again when we take a look at the juxtaposition portion of this. But take a look at the Shrine of Sigmar, 5K to 10 to a 20K top end here with the Cathedral of Sigmar. And then as well with the Wizard's Conclave jumping up to 20K at the top. And I might be wrong on this. I thought that this was like around 12 or 15K. They did say that they wanted to add more, I guess, competent money sinks as far as things that are going to cost more in the game, that you don't just have the steamroll of very, very high finances. And then Imperial Academy is up here at 10K. And I think that this is, I don't remember how much this has changed. We'll take again a look in that juxtaposition. And I believe that they said there's certain tweakings of pricing over here in this branch as well. But I can take a look at the farms, 500, 750, 1,000. That's actually a pretty good little increase. Same thing with the Weaving House, 600 to 900 to 1,200. Then we take a look at the Tap Room, 1,000 to 2,000 to 4,000 for the Coaching Inn. And this is about 1,000 to 2,000. So I believe this hasn't been touched. I thought it had been, but I think that this is the branch they were talking about. Specific resources, 500 to 750 to 1,000. Again, that's had a little bit of a pricing drop as well. As far as military recruitment, it's going to kind of play in line with everything. So 2,000 for the rally field and 4,000 for the barracks. I believe that's again about in line with what it is now, with maybe a small increase. Then stables up from 2,500 to 5,000 to 10,000 for the menagerie, and then 5 to 10 to 20 for the engineer's workshop. I believe that has gotten an increase. So you get an idea of how they are kind of intending to curb the pricing on some branches and increase it in others. Remember, the whole plan here is to kind of create a campaign where the beginning portions of the campaign last longer and the end portions of the campaign take longer to get to and are a little bit more of a higher price barrier. We could also see here too, by looking at the actual building lines for the provincial capital, the hamlet goes to 2,500, then to 5,000 for the town, but then a huge hike to 10K and a massive hike to 20K. So this is again had its tweakings as well. These two tiers are a little bit easier to get to, I think, than they were before. But the last two tiers are much harder to get to. So it increases that disparity between tiers 1 through 3. I'm sorry, it reduces the disparity between tiers 1 through 3, but increases it from 3 to 4 and even to 5. So it should be kind of interesting to see how this affects overall the speed of this campaign, because that is the ultimate goal of this patch, to make for a slower campaign in the harder difficulties and a faster campaign in the easier difficulties. I've gone with standard here as just, again, to establish a baseline for how this campaign plays. But let's jump over to the juxtaposition portion of this without the patch, and then we'll jump back over to the patch with this being around turn 50 or 60, 40, whatever I kind of decide gives us a really good idea for how the game plays through. So here we are with the non-Proving Grounds patch, and we can already see a lot of what I was talking about with the price increase. So what I want to talk about first is the infrastructure, because I kind of got that pretty wrong in the previous portions of this video. So the fields, remember, this is no Proving Grounds patch. The fields are 500, 1,000, 2,000. In Proving Grounds, they're 500, 750, and then 1,000. And with the Weaving House, again, the pricing will kind of match that gradual increase for these tier 1 through 4 looks even buildings. The Coaching Inn is actually $500 cheaper in the Proving Grounds patch, and the paved roads are 1,000 and 2,000 versus 500 and 1,000. So they've kind of taken the income buildings and the growth buildings and brought them into a more gradual scale, less of a huge jump from 750 on the bottom to 2,500 on the top end. The landmarks, I was right, these are all the same, exact same, 16,000, 15,000, 10K, and 6K. Looking at the ports, we're looking at 4K, not 3K like I thought. So 4K up to 9K. So the ports in the Proving Grounds are far cheaper, far more manageable to deal with. And even taking a look at portions of the military recruitments, these two branches are the same. Barracks and, like I was saying, it's 2,000, 4K, 2,000 and then 4K, then 2,500, 5,000 to 7,500 here with the menagerie. We've actually jumped to 10K for the Proving Grounds. But taking a look here at the Gunsmith, 5,000 to 7,500. It was 10K before, then 20K, the 11,250 for the Engineer's Workshop, which is 20K in the Proving Grounds. So you can see right here that basically anything in tiers 4 and 5 has had a drastic price increase. And that is again in line with the patch notes, is what they said they wanted to have achieved with this patch, wherein I'll scoot over here, tiers 1 through 3 are a little bit more manageable, but 4 and 5 are a little bit harder to break into monetarily and from a number of other perspectives. This is kind of slows the campaign down. You can't just jump to tier 5 by turn 30 in all of your campaigns. I think that's kind of their general approach. You spend more time in the beginning portions of the campaign, making the end portions of the campaign a little bit more rewardable. So, or rewarding, sorry. I could see that. Now, of course, military support, this is 4,000 and then 6,000. In Proving Grounds, it's 4,000 and then 8,000. So pretty close there on the armory. Of course, the tier 3 being a little bit more expensive. Now, these 3 buildings these 2 buildings have gotten the most change. Imperial Academy is the same, 10K in both patches. So for the default, for what we've got now, Wizards Conclave is 7,500, followed by the Wizards Tower at 11,250. This is obviously a massive drop down from the Proving Grounds, which has it at 20K. Same thing here too with the Shrine of Sigmar from 4 to 6 to 9. These all have different prices on the Proving Grounds. So this hopefully gives you a general idea. And again, guys, please keep in mind here that I'm just looking at the Empire to give us a baseline of things. I know that stuff has drastically changed for the Warriors of Chaos and how their recruitment works and how everything works for them. So I encourage you to download the beta to kind of give it a shot for yourself. But let's jump now over to the campaign and see how this beta actually plays out across, a couple sets of turns here. So we're going to jump to around turn 40 or 50, and I'll then talk about my thoughts on the Proving Grounds beta. Okay, so here we are further into the campaign for Empire on the Proving Grounds patch. Now, I did not get to turn 40. In fact, I only got to turn 22, and by then I actually even realized the pace of the game has drastically changed. Now, not to say in a bad way, but there is one thing I did not go over with the building browser that I want to jump into real quick before we talk about this campaign in its whole entirety, or whatever I'm trying to say, but still. It is the recruitment cost. So, you're going to see here the normal Proving Grounds campaign, and then I'm going to bring up a screenshot to show you guys the pre-patch recruitment costs. So, the upkeep for most things hasn't changed much, but your recruitment cost has nearly doubled. So swordsmen have moved from 400 to 800, Free Company Militia 500 to 1,000, so on and so forth. Now clearly I'm a little bit further in this campaign, so you can see more things that I can recruit, but you're probably wondering, wow, that seems like a huge hindrance. And that kind of gets me into my first portion about this campaign. So by taking a look at where I've gotten so far in Empire, and again, huge disclaimer, guys, every single race is going to play differently. The Tomb Kings are largely unaffected because most of their things don't have any kind of recruitment cost. And stuff like the Warriors of Chaos or Beastmen have a different kind of effects to their overall faction because of the way it all works. So take this all with a relative grain of salt as it compares strictly from an Empire to Empire standpoint. You're going to want to test your favorite race to see how it plays for you. But in my experience here, the way that this game plays now is a little bit more streamlined in the beginning portions of the game. Sure, your units do cost more, but by example, if I go take a look over here at Grunberg, Eilhart, or Ubersreich, then I bring up the building browser, majority of anything I want to build is going to be, right, like max tier 3, right? So all those buildings are way cheaper now. And on top of it, getting to the tier 3 one is a little challenging at 4,850 in the early game, but getting to tier 2 is only 2,500. So getting to and then also filling it with buildings is a lot easier. Your money goes a lot further in the beginning portion of the game because you can actually spend it on tier 1 and 2 initial buildings, like your infrastructure buildings, that really, really help out. I mean, I'm only at turn 22, and I've been able to upgrade this to tier 2, upgrade this to tier 2, build tier 2 things over here, and also build all this to tier 2. Now by turn 22, regularly, I would not be able to accomplish that just because your income level can't really sustain that many minor settlement upgrades, as well as provincial capital upgrades, as well as other buildings upgraded too. So as a whole, I really feel like this has taken a right step as far as making the beginning portions of the game less of a slog. If I'm going to want to slog through the portions of the game, I would prefer it to be the end game when I have all the cool toys, but this also might drastically change the end game. I mean, I know it will, actually, and I haven't really tested that. I wanted you guys to get a good feel for how this plays in the beginning portions, so you can really see if the Proving Grounds has that massive barrier of entry where you don't even want to start a campaign in the Proving Grounds to see what the end game's like. This should hopefully kind of whet that palate a little bit to give you an idea of it's actually pretty easy. You've got so much money to spend on your buildings that it's not as scary to buy them. Now, conversely, of course, you are spending more on your units, but you have such a low amount of recruitment slots. I honestly didn't feel that that was a huge hindrance. I felt that at the end of the day, by turn 10 or 15, I was able to build more buildings than I'm usually able to in any campaign. So I wasn't sure if I'd really enjoy that improvement at all, and I'll be honest, I did a lot more than I thought. Another change too is on the archers, on all ranged units. They've been balanced just a little bit, especially when it comes to the auto resolve. Auto resolve is far more favorable to your units as a whole without stacking a ton of damage onto single entities, and I find that I did not lose a single unit in an auto-resolve scenario. It just simply would deplete the unit, even to a very low percentage. I was surprised coming away with, there was one point where I tested a unit where it had, like, let's just say this one's a pretty good example, actually. I've just taken Marienburg, so these guys are all beat up right now. But this swordsman unit in an auto-resolve scenario, more often than not, would just get gibbed out or killed by the AI. I was finding that more units than the normal were just kind of getting knocked down to their lowest portions of their health. So I'm okay with that. You know, you build up some time, get your upkeep, they come back. So all fine with me. As a whole, I think that initially I don't really have much or many hangups with the Proving Grounds. I think that the long run, in the top end of the game, it's probably going to become a little bit grindier. Now, this is just standard difficulty. I can imagine that the higher difficulties will be a little bit slower, of course, because that's the goal of them. Now, another thing that they did was kind of overhaul, or at least tweak the AI's behavior, I guess you could say. And it's been a little bit of the Wild West. I'm not gonna lie here. So, you know, we've got these guys, right? We've got the the Leafcutters Tribe. The Leafcutters Tribe is responsible for destroying Midland. Then they went over here and destroyed some portions of Marienburg. Like, they're really kind of going all over the place. And then over here, with the Grungzint, with these guys, the Skull Smashers, they destroyed Marienburg over here and almost took Fort Burb. I was able to just pick up a Marienburg that was in ruins. So we definitely have these kind of smaller little greenskin factions, a lot more aggressive. In addition to the Norskins on this northern coast, I don't know if it was Norska or if it was the Van Heimlings, yeah, the Van Heimlings, that destroyed Nordland over here in Salzenmund. So it's a lot more aggression from the smaller AI factions. And we did get a little fix to Sylvania at one point in my campaign. They've kind of been curbed back a little bit by Ostermark now at this point, but they had this portion of Ostermark. I think isn't this Mordheim? Yeah, they had Mordheim. They had this huge swath, and it looks like they just lost Fort Obersteyr over here. And you can also see the border princes have pushed up into the bottom portions of the empire. So definitely a way different kind of feel to this campaign with how present the AI is. I don't feel like these guys are such an easy steamroll nowadays for AI's sake. You know, when it comes to Marienburg, Bretonnia, and Grungzint, they all kind of usually, Grungzint gets killed in the first 2-3 turns, and it's just these two pushing back and forth. I was very surprised to see Marienburg in ruins, and I was only able to see that when I brought the lector count portion, and I saw that these two had just ruins for their symbols. And I was like, wow, that's pretty crazy. And that's when I took a look at the map and saw how a lot of AI that I would not expect was actually working a little bit better than they're used to, at least. So it kind of creates a better power shift in all of these regions, in my opinion. It makes for a lot more enjoyable of a campaign where, especially Empire, if I'm looking strictly at this from an Empire perspective, it's really cool to see this, because this just means I'm not just fighting Empire and waiting For my Imperial Authority, I actually have targets to expand to or attack into. I can go in here into Midland and start going for the Leafcutters if I so wish. So it just kind of shakes up the normal formula, and I think in a good way. As far as diplomacy goes, I was very surprised to be able to get the trade diplomacy already with Kislev on turn 1. So they've really kind of overhauled the tweaking on some things where if you're kind of predisposed to kind of be in a certain scenario with a faction, it kind of bows to give you that road a little bit easier. Kislev was way easier to get into a non-aggression pact and in a trade agreement pact than I've ever played in any Empire campaign I've ever played. Usually it's like they hold out till the bitter end, just slurring at me and just spitting vodka in my mouth. So I was happy to see that kind of overhauled just a little bit. So as a whole, though, I think the Proving Grounds is definitely worth taking a look into and really testing. I think that it's really worth putting your hands on to see what you like so you can give feedback to Creative Assembly. I would imagine that the latter 2 difficulties of the campaign probably are going to be a little bit rougher as far as their starts go. You can see what those increased costs are, or the different benefits and or cons of playing the higher difficulty campaigns. I'll link you to the Proving Grounds article in the description, so you can go ahead and take a look at that sliding scale upward or downward, depending on which difficulty you want to play. But as a whole, I guess kind of like in closing, I think that Proving Grounds is an interesting step for Total War Warhammer. And it's not one that I expected, nor did I think it was one that we ultimately needed. I will say, too, that not having supply lines to worry about is pretty nice. Like, I've got right now 715 income. I don't mind doing this. Here, boop, we'll just press this button. All right, well, now I only have the upkeep of this guy, which is 300. So it makes it a lot easier to kind of look at your finances on a one-to-one and go, okay, I'm just going to expand this direction and not worry about it. I had an extra lord, but I destroyed him because I was like, I can't deal with the actual army upkeep of him, not the supply lines difficulty. And also, I know this is the same trade menu, but for some reason it feels better to look at. I don't know. Maybe it's because they're trying to streamline everything, and I'm like, what's it called? When I'm like tricking myself into thinking that this is okay, or that looks better. But as a whole, I think that they've taken a lot of really interesting steps that do need some tweaking. I don't think that this is the end-all be-all of for the direction of Total War Warhammer, but I think that it does put you in a very interesting place to say, hey, tweaking with those construction costs and the unit costs actually did do quite strong or quite well for the beginning portions of a campaign. I'm very curious to see, though, how this really plays out across a lot of different races, a lot of different difficulties, and a lot of different scenarios. You know, Mortal Empires versus Vortex campaigns, so on and so forth. So we have plenty of time to keep testing this patch, especially with all of us in our current situations, as is. But if you have any questions about the Proving Grounds patch, anything you want me to answer while I still have it installed, go ahead and let me know. I can jump back in and get you a quick answer. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that kind of action. But again, let me know how you're feeling about the Proving Grounds. Is this something that you're really enjoying, or do you think it's a huge step back in the forward development of Total War Warhammer 2? As always, again, have a good one and take care.